to the weekly show, everybody. It's so good to be here with all of you. We're entering a busy season for college admissions, and my staff has had fantastic emails and comments from you coming in. And one of the most prominent questions coming in is, Mr. Buffer, what are some good guidelines for the common application or coalition application, personal statement essay, and for the major essay students have to write for university, for the universities they want to get into. And as someone, I work with my students one-on-one on the admissions process, on all of their essays as an author, as a writer, as an educator. We make sure their essays are stellar. And what does a stellar essay actually mean? So we're going to talk about today some of the misconceptions and mistakes people make with the common application essay that I've seen over the years that I do not let my students make, okay? And when we talk about those common mistakes, really pay attention today and don't let yourself make these mistakes in the process because they cost you admission. Not because an admissions office is punishing anybody, but more so because a college doesn't get a chance to see who you really are, to contextualize your high school experiences and see how that might apply at their university. So let's get right into it, everybody, since this is a great topic. I want to talk about, again, major mistakes students make in their common application or coalition application personal statements. Okay, first mistake, common mistake students make is thinking the essay stands alone. A story I like to tell is I had a student come into my office about 3 or 4 years ago with a book he had gotten from the bookstore, and he said, Mr. Buffer, I got this book on Ivy League essays. So if we just copy one of these, we do one of this, I have a better chance of getting in, right? To an Ivy League school. And I said, no, that's not how it works. Admissions officers don't look at the essay as a separate part of the application. As if like, oh, he or she's a great writer and they wrote a great essay, let's let them in. They're better to tell your writing skills by your grade in AP Lang and other ways, not by your essay. It's not to assess your writing. So the essay is seen as the best way to think of the essay first is not that it stands alone. That is a great contextualizer. It is supposed to contextualize your high school experience. So the most important factor admissions officers look for in your essay, in your application, is who were you in high school? The 3.5 years in high school before you apply in January, 3 years in high school before you apply on October 15th and November 1st for early action, early decision. Who were you? Were you a leader in your school? Were you someone others looked up to? Were you empathetic? Yes, to look at your grades and your scores and all of that, and they'll look at your activities, but who were you in your environment? And the essay will help contextualize that, but it has to be backed up by your recommendation letters, by your activities. If you weren't elected vice president or president of anything in your high school, or elected to anything, and your teachers don't describe you as a leader or someone others follow, it is hard for an admissions officer to take your essay really seriously if you're talking about what great leadership skills you developed in high school. But if you can contextualize something in your application, if you were the vice president of student council, or the president of the robotics club, or the leader or the captain of the robotics team, and you want to talk about how your leadership developed on that, then they can look at your activities, they see you around that club, your teachers or your guidance counselors written about it in their rec letters. It's great. It contextualizes the experiences they already know about. So again, number one mistake, do not make thinking the essay stands alone. It's a contextualizer. Second mistake, one of the most common mistakes I see students making is treating it like an English assignment. You are not writing this essay for your AP Lang teacher. You are not. The admissions officers are not grading your writing. They're not going to say, okay, you should have used better vocabulary. Of course, those things are important. It should be well written and error-free. It should be proofread, of course. But fancy words are not what's going to impress them. That actually seems more inauthentic. It has to be something they can connect with. It shows real insight. For instance, one of my students recently admitted to Cornell. He talked about the greatest, in his personal statement, one of the most important leadership lessons he ever learned. He said, I learned in as a good leader, I treat everyone equally, but not the same. So insightful. And he talked about, he was the leader of HOSA in his school. It's a medical club. And he talked about all these lessons he learned and how he had to learn to adapt his leadership. And that was backed up by his activities, by his recommendation letters. It really put a highlighter in some things in his application. Okay? That's how you want to think of the essay. Don't treat it like an English assignment where you're trying to impress with how you say it. You're trying to impress them with the insight and what you say. Okay? Now, the third mistake, another mistake I want to talk about today is trying to be someone you're not in your essay. Don't write your essay thinking, oh, I've heard Mr. Buffer or someone say the University of Michigan loves teamwork, and the University of Michigan Ross Business School loves team players, so I'm going to write my essay for University of Michigan on being a team player. Well, that's okay, but if your application does not support that, it's not really who you've been in high school. You want to focus on something in your essay about who you've been in high school that can be backed up and supported, that can be documented with real evidence from your activities and your recommendation letters and your resume as well. That your guidance counselor sees your activities. They are going to be seeing all 3 of your recommendation letters. The guidance counselor is going to write one. Your teachers are going to write one that you choose, 2 or 3, depending on the school. So you want to be someone who you really are. Speak about your best qualities. Anybody of you listening, you have fantastic qualities. You have something to offer a college that nobody else does. Unique flavor of who you are. Find out believe in what that is. Okay. Go off of the feedback you've gotten from teachers and the positive feedback you've gotten, and write about those great qualities. You don't have to be someone you're not. Colleges are heterogeneous communities looking for mixed personalities to make a great community. And colleges, remember, you always hear me say, listen to my show if you've been to one of my speeches, colleges are building communities. They are not letting in individuals in isolation. Okay? So don't try to be someone you're not. By someone you're not, I mean, don't try to present yourself as someone you haven't been the last 3 years. Focus on the best qualities that have come out of your high school experience that your people would know about you. Okay? So that's a really, really important. Everything should be echoed that's in your application already and highlighted, and that will make it authentic. Because authenticity can be equated with alignment with what they can see already in your application. Okay? The next mistake I want to talk about is when students come in and they try to show off instead of showing growth in their essays. One of the best things you could write about in your personal statement is growth, how you've changed, and not growth that you planned. The most powerful growth is growth that you didn't plan, that just came about unexpectedly. Okay? So when students write about the growth they've had, it's really, really telling. College can see, okay, you have what's often called a growth mindset, but you're also somebody that's willing to grow more when you get to college. One of the greatest experiences I have every year is when new students join my college planning program, and they look through the essays of my previous Ivy League or near Ivy admits, and they say, wow, Mr. Buffer, this is so different than from what I've been reading in these books and online. I said, yes, I understand. You thought a great essay was supposed to be something to impress them with your intellectualism and big words. And that's not the case most of the time. Most of the time, an essay should be really about you and how you've grown. One of my students last year could not believe that one of my Ivy League admins had talked about how he was afraid to public speak, and he had to work through his public speaking to get onto Model UN. He said, wow, and that got him into Cornell? And that got him into Yale? I said, yes. He couldn't believe that the person showed such vulnerable characteristics, but that's going to come across more authentic than trying to say how smart you are, how other people look at you a certain way. What's really going to come across positively if you talk about how you've grown, how you were in a tough spot, you worked your way out, you had and developed tools, why you could bring to college, because then the college is going to say, this is someone not coming in as a know-it-all, coming in as an I don't know it all. So you don't need to use the essay to talk about big accomplishments. It's really to talk about your personal accomplishments, how you've changed and grown as a person, or an experience you've had that gave you new insights, and especially unexpected. One of my students last year wrote about he went to spend some time in the Amazon rainforest, living there for a week. Amazing essay, got into some really top schools for engineering, and it was he talked about how he went there reluctantly. His parents wanted him to go, and he said it was one of the greatest experiences of my life because I didn't realize how much dependent I was on technology. He showed such growth, such insight, such introspection, and it's not a time, again, to brag or show off. Now, it doesn't mean you can't write about your accomplishments in some of your activities. One of my students wrote about how his team did a hackathon, they won this big thing, and he was so proud. There was nothing wrong with writing about that, but he talked about in the context how the group learned to work well together, how to capitalize on each other's strengths. He didn't use it as a time to show off. He used it as a time to show what he learned. And one of my other students, she talked about this is an amazing girl, got to the University of Michigan, her experience babysitting two autistic twins, one of the most amazing experiences of her life. She talked about how she went in first tepid, not trusting herself, how the experience taught her to trust herself and honed her skills, and it made her more excited and ready to go into the medical field to be a pediatrician. That's growth, that's insight, and that was supported by her experiences. She was a volunteer at a child care center, and she got a great rec letter from the person, supervisor there. Her teachers talked about how empathetic she was. It was all aligned, and the essay gave great context to her application, okay? So you don't have to brag on your essay. You want to show growth, and you don't have to emphasize intelligence. They're going to judge your intelligence by your scores, your grades, what your teachers say about you. The essay is more about how does this person, after they passed our stats test, you've heard me say many times, great stats get you in the door to be considered, but fit and for the school's culture, the school's community gets you admitted. So, and the essay should be a time to say, wow, this person would fit in great to this community. An example I give is I'm an employer. I interview teachers, a great amount of teachers per week. And I don't just look for who's the best teacher to work at my learning centers for my company. I say, who is a good fit? And it's the same way colleges often look at it for once people have the statistics to keep up with the student body there and the classes there, they're going to say who's going to be a good fit for our existing community, for the culture we have here, okay? So, and that's where it's about in your essay. You always hear people say, tell a story. Yes, tell a story, but it's not a story about your accomplishments. It's a story about you growing, overcoming obstacles, changing. And when I work with my students, we really try to, I don't just let them choose a topic randomly. I say, are these qualities how your teachers see you? We investigate that. There's a process for that. We make sure everything's aligned in their application. It's a very important part of the process, okay? And you want to let the reader feel who you are as a human being. One of the analogies I gave in a speech last week, if you're driving by a house, you have the new neighbors, they're moving into the house, they have their windows open, they're unpacking, you're looking, you feel like you're getting to know them. And colleges often feel like they want to get to know who you are, not just from your essay, but your essay is part of it, from your recommendation letters, your school environment. The essay is part of that package of how they're assessing who you are in your environment. And that is a key part of the application process. Okay? So these are mistakes, the ones I've listed today: trying to be someone you're not, treating the essay, personal statement like a writing assignment, thinking the essay stands alone, using it as a time to brag about accomplishments rather than talk about how you've grown, overemphasizing intellectual and other accomplishments, as I mentioned, writing like a resume, not letting the reader feel who you are. These are all mistakes students make. I do not let my students make. And if you're listening, please don't make these mistakes, because they are, don't let a colleges, top universities see who you are. And someone asked, does this also apply when I answered their email about the idea of this authenticity that I'm talking about? Does that also apply to supplemental essays? Absolutely. Supplemental is a separate show I'm going to do. But supplemental essays also, they're common mistakes people make where they don't show things in their background that connect well to the school. It seems inauthentic. We're going to have a different show for that. But I hope today was helpful for all of you to understand the most common pitfall mistakes that you should avoid when crafting and drafting your common application essay, coalition essay, personal statements. And if you have any further questions, please contact us. So many of you are writing in, contacting my staff about an opportunity to work with me on college admissions, medical school admissions. I am still taking new people in my program. You work one-on-one with me, nobody else, and you get expert, great help. And I love working with students and families in this process, and I look forward to working with all of you soon. Thank you for tuning in. Have a fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you soon.